Hey, lovely people, Tee here, your dream doula, transformational coach, creative, and fellow midlife dreamer. Welcome to another episode of the Dream in Action podcast, which I have fondly started referring to as DIA, at least in my head. It was my 46th birthday this week, and we have this tradition in my home that I am incredibly proud of. We buy a little cake, even though, we're not that crazy about cake. I don't think anyone actually is crazy about birthday cakes. Maybe there's some, but I think majority of people just get it because it is a birthday. So anyway, we get the cake with candles and stuff and either wake up the family member very early in the morning, or as is the case of Jose, my husband, we wake the person up as the time strikes 12 midnight with a birthday song and present their gifts and cards and that stuff. Nothing fancy, really simple. But one of my favorite aspects of this tradition is the cards. Hopefully, by now, you guys know my love relationship with words. So, anyway, this year was no different. I got the cards, but what struck me was the common thing in both of the cards. And these were two cards from my younger children. And when I saw the same thing being echoed in my sister's birthday message, one of my sisters, I knew this was something worth voicing and sharing with you, my fellow dreamers. And it is this: your work may not get the attention you personally seek or think it deserves, but it is getting noticed and it matters. So the bottom line is keep going, because consistency counts. Now, if you want to stop listening here, by all means do. But I hope you stick with me. I hope you stick with me till the end. This is likely going to be a shorter episode, but I hope you stick with me till the end while I unpack this with a little bit more detail. My name is Tee Ari, and this is the Dream in Action podcast. Have you ever felt like you were just existing, not truly living? Like you were made for more, but somehow life got in the way. Hey, I'm Tee Ari, your host, transformational coach, and dream doula. Welcome to Dream in Action, the podcast where we don't just talk about dreams, we bring them to life. For years, I nurtured others, first as my mom's oldest child, then as a mother myself. And then somewhere along the way, I lost me, stuck in autopilot. But I was never able to shake the fact that my mom passed away at just 42, full of unfulfilled dreams. And I knew I couldn't keep waiting. So I embraced the stretch, took action, and found opportunities in places I never expected. Now, I help women over 40 do the same. Stop waiting, start dreaming, and take bold action. If you're ready to go from feeling stuck to building something meaningful, you're in the right place. This is Dream in Action. So to give you an example of what my daughter wrote in her card, it was something along the lines of, "Thank you for teaching me the right things, even when it can get repetitive." Now, fun fact, guys, I am a massive crier. Okay. The waterworks are never far off. In fact, I was telling my brother in law this week, who happens to be a medical doctor, and his birthday is the day after mine. And I was telling him that I had a case of hyperactive tear ducts. It is something I used to be really ashamed of, but over the years, I have learned to embrace, especially after reading Brene Brown's Daring Greatly. If you haven't read that book, I highly, highly recommend it. Anyway, so it was certainly a waterworks moment for me, reading those words that my daughter wrote. But more than that, it was a mic drop reminder. Let me read you the statement again. "Thank you for teaching me the right things, even when it can get repetitive." The key word there is the word repetitive. At least that's what stood out to me. It tells me that the ordinary, slightly boring, show up everyday stuff, the conversation that sometimes leads to eye rolls, the gentle repeats about kindness, about courage, about love, about family, that is what leaves the mark. And this isn't popular in today's world that screams bigger and faster and go viral. And look, I have nothing against going viral. Who doesn't want their message to travel far and wide? I haven't gone viral. I would desire to go viral. Anyone putting their message out there every day is not doing it to reach themselves, are they? But where it becomes a problem is where we mistake virality or virality, however it's pronounced, for impact. In my opinion, virality is potential impact. But true impact is impact whether it is coming from a viral post or a little known book or a teacher in a classroom or a parent who shows up consistently. Let me tell you another story of my encounter with Sue Rinaldi. Now, you might not know Sue Rinaldi, and that is quite all right. In the world where we have Beyonce and CeCe Winans, if you're in the Christian space, Sue Rinaldi is not that well known, at least in my opinion. But you see, to me, that didn't matter in my early 20s when I came across her music in my little corner of Nigeria. That's the country I grew up in. And I know I'm going to be dating myself now, but this was before Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, okay? It was only when I moved into the UK and YouTube started that I went to check out who this woman was and where she was from. I now know that she is this consummate Southampton based Christian artist. Now, this woman will probably never know, unless, of course, someone forwards this podcast episode to her, how much her music meant to me back in the early 2000s. How her music was the soundtrack to my morning devotions as I got ready for work every day. How, even as the years have passed, I have never forgotten her. And whenever she floats into my consciousness, I bless her for sharing her gifts with the world. How she has now become a reminder that impact isn't always loud or trending. And that doesn't mean you shouldn't aim for trending. I'm sure she did. And I would suggest, yes, do all you can to trend because who knows who your message is going to reach. But my point here is don't measure your worth by the trend. And the invitation to you and me in this story of Surinaldi is to keep showing up for your work, the art, the children, the business, the dream, even when the room feels empty and the stats look flat. Because you never know who's quietly being shaped by your consistency. So if you're ever tempted to measure your worth by views or followers or follows, remember Surinaldi. Remember that sometimes, arguably many times, a hidden ripple can outlast a viral wave. Someone is always watching, learning, borrowing courage from your consistency. I can't even begin to tell you how many seasons I've been through where I wondered if this podcast or even my coaching work mattered at all. Another fun fact for you guys. Do you know why I got off my slacking behind and got back behind the mic after my summer hiatus, my short summer hiatus? It was because someone messaged me to ask when I was returning and how she had been re listening, not just listening, but re listening to the podcast on YouTube. And that actually made me laugh. It kind of felt like God was giving me a side eye. While I'm over here analyzing downloads and second guessing every episode title, somebody somewhere is folding laundry, commuting, or taking a walk with my voice in their ear, pulling strength from something I probably said months ago and can't even remember. But isn't that the thing about steady, ordinary showing up? You rarely see the fruit in real time, but someone is quietly counting on you to keep going, even if they never hit like or leave a review. So when you're tempted to believe your effort is invisible, picture that unseen listener because she's out there waiting for your next drip of courage. Now, I'd like to give you a little challenge for this week. Pick one rhythm you already do, whether that is morning journaling, that weekly email you send to your subscribers, reading bedtime stories to your little ones. And I want you to name it as holy work. And when I say holy work, I don't mean something only a priest or a pastor does. I'm sure you probably have figured that out already. I mean the everyday but sacred stuff, the packed lunches, the podcast episodes, the quiet kindness that you show up for with love and intention, even when no one is clapping. Show up for it like it is shaping the future, your future, because it is. Then write on a sticky note the phrase, "This counts," and stick it on the item that represents that secret action you do. For instance, if it's a podcast like mine, then stick it on your mic. I'm doing so myself. Or if you're a writer, then maybe stick it on your laptop so that every time you see it, it reminds you that today's repetition is tomorrow's legacy. Hey, dreamer, quick pause. If this episode is stirring something in you, but you're not sure how to start, I've got you. Grab my free dream activation kit. It's your first bold step out of confusion and into clarity. Inside, you'll get the Spark session, a guided audio to help you reconnect with what you really want, my dream discovery workbook to map it all out, and Dream Speak, a short affirmation track to boost your belief again. This isn't fluff, my friend. It is fuel, and it is completely free. DM me the word dream on Instagram at Hey Tee Ari, or head to the link in the show notes. All right, back to the episode. I did tell you that this was going to be a shorter episode, so let me leave you with these words from Annie Dillard. It's your quote of the week. How we spend our days is, of course, how we spend our lives. So keep showing up, because those extraordinary days, they are building something extraordinary. As always, if this episode encouraged you, share with a friend who is on the edge of giving up. And if you want more weekly doses of courage, make sure you hop on my Dream free newsletter. I'm going to put the link in the show notes. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep daring, and keep moving towards your spark. And that's it for today's episode of Dream in Action. I hope this conversation stirred something in you, maybe a fresh idea, a little more clarity, or just a reminder that your dreams are valid and worth pursuing. If you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a new one. And if you're feeling generous, leaving a review helps people find this podcast. It's like telling the algorithm, hey, this is worth listening to. So if this spoke to you today, and you don't even do any of the other two, please share it with a friend or two. Before we go, let me leave you with one of my favorite Bible verses of all time. Never doubt God's mighty power to work in you and accomplish all this. He will achieve infinitely more than your greatest request, your most unbelievable dream, and exceed your wildest imagination. He will outdo them all, for his miraculous power constantly energizes you. Ephesians 3:20. Until next time, dream wildly, live boldly, and keep going.